What I did say somewhere earlier in the story was that we find stories all over the world where teachers will often hold some knowledge back.
Right. Can you expand on that?
Well, most of the stories of this we find, not completely, but very often in the martial arts. And there's a lot of stories in China about that, even in the Western traditions of swordsmanship, that they would always hold something back. Now, in other kinds of knowledge, this commonly happens when in certain areas of knowledge, a teacher of healing, for instance, might also learn, in the process of healing, learn ways to harm. Because he's got to learn how to be able to deal with those. Okay? Just as in martial arts, sometimes they'll learn ways to heal and ways to harm in the same way, that don't have anything directly to do with the fighting. But in other kinds of traditions, it might be this too, where certain knowledge of how to do something harmful would not be taught, that would be held back. Okay? Because it would not be seen as being helpful to the student. There might come a time when something will be held back from one student because the teacher may think that student is not able to handle it or doesn't understand something about it, and yet teach that same thing to another student, but hold back something from that student because he's not ready or wouldn't know how to use it. So these kinds of things can happen too. So it's not always a bad thing, not treasuring it as a secret. I'll tell you a secret, okay? There really aren't any secrets, okay? It's all been given out. Especially today, it's been given out in so many more forms than ever. When someone tells you that they have secret knowledge that they're not allowed or cannot reveal to you, laugh. Because what they're doing, the secret is they don't have any. Okay? That's what they're hiding. Okay? Because the knowledge is there. It's readily available. It's often not recognized, and that's what a good teacher will do, is help you recognize it or put it in words that you might understand. But this old idea of secret knowledge is so strong all over the world. And it's a farce, it's a fallacy. It's a way some people maintain a position of prestige because they're considered, they've got these big secrets and only they are the ones who can have them. And even the bad stuff, all the knowledge of that is out there as well. There's no point putting a lot of attention on it, but it's all there. And so there aren't any of those deep kinds of secrets. Now, sometimes, for practical purposes, how to do something, or a secret place. All over the world, fishermen have secret fishing places because they don't want them fished out. And this was common in Hawaii, and it's in Europe, and in Asia. It's a common thing. There are other kinds of things that were proprietary because they were the ways that people made their living in certain kinds of skills and crafts. Okay? That secrets of those crafts were held within a particular group so that they could maintain their income. And so that was very common for a lot of. They had it here in Hawaii, they had it again in Europe among the craft guilds, very similar things again in Asia. These kinds of things were done for practical economical purposes. Okay? Not because they had something that was not to be revealed. Who said so? Some other human being? What right do they have? They might do it, but what's the point? It's something like finally getting $1 million and keeping it under your bed. What's the point? it's just paper at that point. Yes.
Along the same lines, sometimes does the master hold back on a certain item or skill or something because the student is supposed to discover that?
Yes, that happened to me a lot. Starting with my father. Because what happens is they teach you something and you're expected to use what they've taught to learn this new thing. See? But what often happens is people just want to be taught. They don't want to work at it. Okay? And so, yes, teach me, teach me, teach me. And we get strange kinds of things like, we have workshop junkies. You're all familiar with the concept? It's people who keep going to workshops hoping that in some magical way they'll be transformed by the workshop. Okay? Doesn't work that way. People read books by the tens and by the hundreds hoping that somehow the same kind of thing will happen. I had one person write me a very, very poignant email actually. He said, he said, I read your book, and I read it several times. And after about a year, I finally got the idea that you have to use it. Yeah, right, well. So it's not holding back something that will prevent the student from doing something. It's letting the student use what they've done. Then it becomes a skill.
I was thinking of secret societies like the Masons, and this is they would try to say we have the secret knowledge, and everybody else has to be in the.
I know, see, and priesthoods used to do that and all kinds of stuff, and that helps them keep them in a position of prestige and power and influence.
Yes, absolutely.
And so they surround it all with ritual, which makes it seem more mysterious. They use special language that nobody else understands, all to hide the fact that they don't really have anything that's really secret. They've done a lot. Now, there's another kind which is different. And it's really not held as a secret, but I'll give you an example in our modern society that's very common. When if you go to school and you're first learning about science, and you're first learning about electricity, it's very, very common to be told that electricity is like water running through a hose. And it has, as the water rubs on the hose, that's resistance. And a spigot, that's voltage, because that's the pressure that pushes the electricity through. And, it's a general metaphor that's used. And then if you really go into science further, and a lot of people stop there, that's all they know about electricity. But if you go further into science, you start learning, well, at some point, it's not exactly like that. So then you start learning some other ways to think of electricity. And you start learning about positive and negative poles and attraction and repulsion and other kinds of, and then you go on further and say, well, it's not exactly like that. But to start with, often we have to be given a metaphor that we can understand with the knowledge we have. And as we gain more knowledge, the metaphor changes to something which is closer to the actuality. But the actuality may be still not in a framework that we can really relate to. So we have to get a different metaphor that gets us closer. So that's not really holding back. That's giving knowledge in a way that people can relate to. And then changing that relationship as they gain more knowledge.